Today's guest will feature the chair of our Intelligence Studies Department, Dr. Fred Hoffman, as well as one of his colleagues, Mr. Bill Welch, who is an instructor in that department as well, too. As we navigate today's session, I just wanted to go ahead and share a couple of tips and tricks with you. This event is going to be recorded, so I would encourage you, if you don't mind, to go ahead and turn your camera on, but again, please note that it is going to be recorded. It allows us a glimpse into your home and or your school, as well as you have an opportunity to see into our offices and our homes. So we are trying to make this virtual world definitely as personable as possible. So again, if you are operating on a device today that allows you to share your picture with us, I would most definitely encourage you to do so. As I mentioned prior to the start of the song that we just heard, there is quite a large group of students here today. So if you aren't speaking, if you wouldn't mind keeping your microphone muted, that does help eliminate any background interference through today's questions. Most importantly, this session is definitely for you. So any questions that you have, we want to make sure that we get those addressed for you. One of the ways you can go ahead and pose those questions to us is via text message. So if you are interested in sending a text message to the secure Mercyhurst University account, please know that our text message number is 814-402-8323. Again, that number is 814-402-8323. There are also a couple of ways to engage with us via this Zoom platform too. If you are on a computer or a laptop, you'll notice at the bottom, if you hover over your screen, that a small chat bubble with the word chat underneath it appears. Go ahead and click on that. You can either type your question in that and we'll pose it on your behalf, or you can simply say, I have a question. If you say simply, I have a question, we'll make sure that the floor is directed to you at some point throughout today's session. You have the same ability to interact with us via that chat feature, even if you are working on a mobile device. If you are operating on a mobile device, if you look for those three dots at the bottom of your screen, again, click on that and then engage in the chat feature. And again, we can go ahead and get your questions addressed. I can't emphasize enough that we are looking forward to engaging with you. And again, your questions are most important to us. Throughout today's virtual event, we'll go ahead and give you an overview of intelligence studies at Mercyhurst University. Then we'll go ahead and introduce some of our current students. We are fortunate enough to have 4 of them here with us. We'll go ahead and pose some questions to them, and they can go ahead and tell you a little bit more about why they're studying at Mercyhurst and why they enjoy the Intelligence Studies Department as well. So without further ado, I'd like to go ahead and introduce Mr. Bill Welch and Dr. Fred Hoffman. Dr. Hoffman?
Thank you, Andrea. I appreciate the introduction. So what we're going to do in the next few minutes is give you an overview of the Intel Studies Department, who we are, what we're doing, how we go about our business, and to give you some context so that when you talk to the 4 students later on in the session, you'll have an understanding of what they're going through and what courses they're taking and basically their trajectory here in the program. So to start off, what we really do is we track for 3 different career paths, right? Left-hand side, you see national security. So those are the 17 entities in the intelligence community. So you think CIA, FBI, military service, intel organizations. So there are a lot of our students that go in that direction. Another direction is intelligence support to law enforcement, because as you can see on the right-hand side of the screen, there's a lot of intelligence needs, and law enforcement has increased its need for people who've got training as intelligence collectors and analysts to support them. And then finally, the business sector. The business sector, I spent 30 years doing human intelligence, and then I did another 7 years in the private sector doing competitive intelligence. And I can tell you right now that in the private sector, business and competitive intelligence are both booming. So these are 3 tracks that students can choose from once they're in the program. Next. So as I mentioned, there's really 2 types of individuals. You want to call either you're a collector, so you're out collecting intelligence, State Department, CIA, DIA, Defense Intelligence Agency, Central Intelligence Agency collectors, or you're an analyst, right? You're taking the intelligence brought in from other folks and assessing it and disseminating it through the community. So we're training folks to do both of those things. Also, what we do is we essentially give you a very solid background for going to graduate school. The research methodologies, the analytic skills, the tools and techniques that you acquire in our program would be indispensable for any graduate program. Finally, communication skills and real-world experience. These are areas we take very seriously. So, for example, one of the things we do is we encourage not only team project work in intelligence-related course materials, coursework, but also doing something called CIRAT, C-I-R-A-T, we'll talk about momentarily, and that's really funded and unfunded project work for external partners, external clients, whether it's government agencies or private sector industry. So the long and short of it is we have students come in, freshman year, basically get exposed to the range of what's possible to do in the Intel field. And then by the time you're a junior or senior, you pretty well know if you want to be a collector or an analyst and which track you want to follow, national security, law enforcement, or private sector. Next slide, please. So a recent study looked at or asked the question, what are the top skills that are looked for by companies and by government organizations in an intelligence analyst? Okay, and these were the responses, and these are all things that are taught in this course, or in this program rather. So analytic methodology is very important. Many different methodologies that are used by Central Intelligence Agency and the intelligence, also used in the private sector, also used by law enforcement, and those are taught and practiced here in our program. Written communication skills. How do you convey what you've analyzed and learned? Also extremely important. So these are all things that are strengths of our program. So we feel very confident that what we're offering to students aligns with the needs of organizations to which they'll end up being employed. Next slide. All right. Some happy snap statistics, okay? We're actually the largest program on Mercyhurst University. We're a very robust program. We've got a lot of folks that have gone through the Intel Studies program and are now in the field. And that's significant because when students go and apply to these organizations, I've actually had somebody from a national intelligence organization say to me, who works in recruiting, whenever they get a resume from somebody from Mercyhurst, they dog ear it and put it to the side and give it a second look. Because we've not only got a large program, a long-standing program, but it's well respected. The students here are very serious, and as are the instructors, and that comes through when students apply for jobs after leaving Mercyhurst. Very, very well respected. Next slide, please. So here's our on-campus faculty. Mr. Welch and I, we're part of the core of the folks who provide the on-campus instruction. We also have a graduate program as well in intelligence, and we also have an online program for folks that want to do this remotely. Next slide, please. So really, at the moment, there's two thrust areas within the Intelligence Studies Department. One is a Bachelor of Arts in Intelligence Studies. And what happens is you essentially have 4 columns to choose from. We've got required courses that everybody takes. Doesn't matter if you're going into law enforcement, it doesn't matter if you're going to the private sector, everybody's taking these courses. Then you've got 4 intelligence electives, and these are kind of determined by your personal interest and where you think you'd like to work professionally, what'll further your professional aspirations. And then you got 4 other electives or the potential for a double major, and these are courses outside of our department. But for example, business courses, if you were going to be focused in the private sector, or information technology courses. And then finally, you take 3 courses that are, let's say, 3 language courses or 3 computer courses, cyber courses. So essentially what we're doing is, because this is a liberal arts institution, we're not only giving you training in intelligence, we're also giving you a well-rounded background. So you've got not only understanding of how intelligence works, but also other fields as well. Next slide. Then the other program is business and competitive intelligence. Now, business intelligence and competitive intelligence are very different. Business intelligence is basically internally focused, looking at data acquired and maintained by the company. Competitive intelligence, you're looking external, you're looking at the market environment, you're looking at competitors. But even so, the training that we provide equips people to go and move from academia into a job environment working in business as a business intelligence or competitive intelligence analyst. Next slide, please. So another facet to our program that we encourage is clubs. So we've got a number of clubs. Some of them are rather specialized. For example, the Anti-Money Laundering Club, Anti-Human Trafficking Club, and students are very, very passionate about participating in this. And this may be something you ask the 4 students at the end of the session about their experience with this. But bottom line is participation in clubs, participation in projects. These are not only data points to put on a resume, they're also what I call discriminators when you're applying for a job. Now you're not just a name on a resume, you've also got some additional things, some additional relationships that you've built while in college that'll facilitate getting employed after you graduate. Next slide, please. So this is what I was referring to earlier, CIRAT, the Center for Intelligence Research, Analysis, and Training. And basically what this is we've got an individual who is very, very adept at finding external partners to provide us with contract work, to provide students with project work. And essentially, these are not only real world opportunities to do work in the intelligence field, so you get a feel for how this works, but also when you apply for jobs, there are students that have gone on to work for these companies after graduation. So it makes for more of a seamless transition from the academic world to professional career opportunities. Next slide. Another thing that I'm very envious of is the ability to study abroad. I had to rely on the Army to send me abroad, not to study, but for other travels. But our students here at Mercyhurst do have the opportunity to study abroad. Dungarvan, Ireland is a very, very popular program. Russian studies, other opportunities. Unfortunately, we've been hampered by COVID, as has the rest of the world, literally. But the opportunities do exist, and these are wonderful ways to not only gain course credit, but also gain valuable life experience interacting with folks in foreign cultures. So this is something that's also of another arrow in the quiver for our Intel Studies students. Next slide, please. So where do they go? Where do our students go? So this slide and the next one gives you a flavor where our students have ended up. And a lot of these companies are very prominent. They're well-known, well-respected firms. Next slide. Okay, so we've got folks that have gone to work for the entities in the intelligence community. We've had folks that have gone to work in support of law enforcement and the military, and we've had folks that have gone to work. Actually, when I worked for a competitive intelligence firm, the way I got to know about Mercyhurst, quite frankly, was we hired somebody who came from here, and that was my first exposure. So I looked into the program and I became so enthused about it that I came up here to teach. I'm very happy here as a professor and as a chairman in the department. And I'm quite confident that we'll continue to see our students transition very successfully after they graduate into these types of organizations. Next slide, please. So what are our expectations? So one of the things we expect is students in the program maintain a 3.0 GPA. This is important because, quite frankly, having been on the receiving end of job applicants in the intelligence community, if you have less than a 3.0 GPA, you have a tough road to hoe. So we actively encourage and we provide assistance here at the university to students to ensure that they're able to maintain a 3.0 GPA. Other expectations is because a lot of the jobs that folks go into require a security clearance. We can't get you a security clearance here at Mercyhurst, but we encourage responsible behavior so that when you apply for a clearance, you don't have any issues that have to be resolved or could potentially prevent you from getting a clearance. So these are some of our expectations as well. Next slide. So just some, if anybody has any questions, you want to reach out to me separate from this presentation about getting a clearance or some of the factors of the process, you're welcome to do so. But these are some of the things that are looked at by the folks that grant security clearances, whether it's NSA, CIA, or the Department of Defense or other entities. Next slide. Okay, so at this point, I think we're going to turn it over to our student panelists.
Sure. So we are fortunate enough to have 4 of our current students here with us today to go ahead and talk a little bit about their experiences. We have Nathan Brand, he's a senior from Buffalo, New York. We have Taylor Johnson, who's a junior from Girard, PA. We have Trey Liu, who is a sophomore from Butler, PA. And we have Lena Jones, who's a sophomore from Syracuse, New York. Nathan, do you go ahead and introduce yourself a little bit more formally and talk a little bit about why you ended at Mercyhurst?
Sure, thank you. As was said, my name is Nathan Brand. I'm a senior from Buffalo. I am studying intelligence with a focus in national security. I'm in the Army ROTC program here, and I'm looking to branch military intelligence at the end of the year when I graduate as an officer. I have a focus in working for the FBI or the CIA, and I'm really excited to talk to you all today. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Nathan. I really appreciate that. Trey, do you mind introducing yourself and telling us a little bit more about you and how you ended up at Mercyhurst?
Yeah, so I'm Trey Lowell. I transferred here actually after I went to a community college back home. I'm a cybersecurity major and an Intel major, and I have a minor in international relations. So I have an uncle who worked for NSA, and we were really close. He pointed me like heavily in this direction, and I've been pleased with it ever since. I'm in a cybersecurity club, criminal justice, and ultimate frisbee. Like, there's a lot to do here, and so far I just love the school.
Thanks, Trey. Appreciate that. Taylor, do you mind introducing yourself?
Hey everyone, I'm Taylor Johnson. I think there was a mistake. I'm actually senior at Mercyhurst. I'm not a junior.
Oh, my apologies.
Oh no, it's okay. I am a intelligence major, but I also have a mathematics minor. I chose Mercyhurst because I'm actually from the area around here, and I was always passionate about wanting a government job, and I wanted to do something. I didn't necessarily want to go the criminal justice route, so I thought that intelligence was the best way for me to get into that government track.
Thanks, Taylor. And Lena, last but definitely not least, do you mind introducing yourself as well?
Hi, my name is Lena. I'm from Syracuse, New York, and I'm a member of the women's golf team. That's originally why I was looking into Mercyhurst. When I was on my tour, they were telling us all about the intelligence studies program, and it's something that really piqued my interest. So I went from going to be undecided into Intel, then from Intel into business and competitive intelligence, because I realized that I wanted to work in the private sector after graduation.
Thanks so much. So to our prospective students that have joined us, again, thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to go ahead and meet with some of our faculty and current students in this virtual setting. Again, I'd like to emphasize that this session is definitely for you. So if you do have any questions that you'd like to pose to either our faculty and or our current students, please either feel free to go ahead and send us a text message. Again, that text message number is 814-402-8323, or feel free to engage with us in the chat. One of the things that I noticed as our current students were introducing themselves is that many of them have double majors or minors. Do you happen to know is it essential for prospective students to know those double majors or minors prior to coming to Mercyhurst, or is that something they can kind of stumble into once they get here? To any of our current students, would any of you like to tackle that question first? Go ahead, Trey.
So what I would recommend, take your first year, get a feel for the program, and second year really start to look for either another major or a minor, something that you can kind of like hone in another skill, like for example, mine, cybersecurity, because like as was like stated earlier, Intel's kind of broad, so you want to find something that's kind of a more specific region, whether that be cybersecurity, law enforcement, whatever. But yeah, I would say after the first year, really start to look for those majors and minors.
Mhm.
Thanks, Trey. I appreciate that. And to our faculty, Mr. Welch and Dr. Hoffman, there's also a lot of unique combinations even on here. I mean, Taylor has a minor in mathematics that she mentioned. Is there anything that students can't double major or minor in? And do you have anything that you typically would encourage prospective students to go ahead and choose as a double major or a minor? Oh, Mr. Welch, you're actually muted.
Well, I think that there are.
Sorry, go ahead, Dr. Hoffman.
Sorry. Okay. So I think there are some majors and minors that naturally go together. So, for example, somebody who's going to be a business and competitive intelligence major, if they did a business minor, that would make sense because now they've got more exposure to business. Somebody who had, their dream job is to work in State Department, I would say an intelligence degree as the major, maybe international relations as another major. Maybe a language as a minor. So I think that a lot of it's going to be shaped by what a person's career aspirations are.
Thanks, Dr. Hoffman. Mr. Welch, did you have some things to add to that?
Well, now that I'm unmuted, yeah, I've seen students take in, even double majors in dance, which doesn't really tie into Intel, but it served their interest. But it's, something they were interested in. But most people I see, or graduates I've seen that successful, they've had minors in a wide variety: criminal justice, any number of the business majors that we offer, cybersecurity, definitely, like Trey is doing. There was a time when all you had to do is had taken one course in cybersecurity, and you're almost guaranteed a job in combination with the Intel degree. 8-9 years ago, when nobody had a degree in cybersecurity. Now that more schools are offering that and more places are offering that, having that minor or that double major paired with Intel is what is almost a sure ticket into getting a job someplace. That doesn't mean others aren't either. Like, we had a public health major here. We still do have it, but students who graduated that in the last few years now, I'm sure, are in high demand in combining Intel with public health, given what's going on in the world. But more standard minors or majors are in criminal, like I say, criminal justice, international relations, political science. Taylor's efforts in math put her in a real good position to get a job with National Security Agency. They use a lot of math there, and in ways that I can't even conceive of, other than the fact there's just a pile of numbers or variables or whatever. But these, there are a lot of different ways to go. And I encourage people, again, like Trey said, after you sort of get grounded here, is to find that degree that hopefully does two things. It matches up with your interests and matches up with your career goals. And that's a good way to go. And a third option, which would probably, maybe you were going to go this way, Andrea, is we have a 4+1 program here, where you do your 4-year bachelor's degree, and then probably by the end of your sophomore year, decide in your junior and senior year to pursue a graduate level degree. And so you can add some of those courses while you're still in undergraduate, and then that counts towards your master's degree, and you get out a little sooner. And we have master's degrees in Intel, in data science, which is a great way to go, and cybersecurity, and again, another great way to go, criminal administration, criminal justice. And what was really popular, but the ratings are down now, is forensic science. So when those forensic, all those CIS or CSI programs were out, Mercyhurst had all kinds of people coming into our department and forensic science department wanting to take apart bodies and crime scenes to figure out how to solve crimes. Those majors are still here, those opportunities are still here, but the show itself has lower ratings, so we don't get as many students knocking on our door for it.
As Dr. Hoffman and Mr. Welch and our students have kind of articulated, essentially the opportunities and the combinations are kind of endless. So again, if you have an interest in intelligence studies, the great thing about Mercyhurst is fall of your freshman year, we want to expose you to that field. So you definitely will go ahead and get to take courses directly in intelligence studies fall of your freshman year, which is unique. Not all colleges and universities can go ahead and say that they allow their current students to delve into their specific major as soon as they step on campus. And then as you kind of navigate that liberal arts core curriculum that Dr. Hoffman mentioned, a lot of times, as Trey and Mr. Welch alluded to, they kind of find that double major or they find that minor. So again, please talk to your peers, please talk to your faculty about what your eventual career interests are, and they might be able to go ahead and recommend a double major or a minor or a course that you could take to go ahead and further explore that opportunity. I think to our prospective students here, one of the things that they're often interested in knowing is what can they do as a high school student that would better prepare them to come to Mercyhurst as an intelligence studies major. Mr. Welch, do you want to go ahead and start with that?
I'll beat a drum that I like to beat frequently, and that is to hone in on your writing skills because almost everything, and not just in this profession, but a huge part of this profession is writing clearly and concisely about what you found out. Our part of the definition of what we call of intelligence, part of our definition is that we're reducing uncertainty for a decision maker. And you can only do that if you're writing clearly, because if you're writing unclearly, then you are making things more uncertain. So work on your writing skills, which means work on your reading skills. And a good way to do that, obviously, is to do the assignments you're given in school, but also to keep up with the news. And then that serves another purpose, is knowing what's going on in the world. If you're doing intelligence and you don't know what's going on in the world, you're handicapped and hindered. But having an understanding of how the world works, how it's been working, the context of it, you're not born into Intel the day you arrive, or in the intelligence world didn't suddenly bloom on the day you start your intelligence academic career or your professional career. It's been going on all along. So knowing the world today and then carrying it forward. And again, as you're reading news from legitimate news sources, and I don't mean watching 24/7 news broadcasts, I mean reading, because then you're picking up reading skills as you go along and writing skills as you go along. And then that carries over into what you do. And three of the students on this Zoom meeting with me have heard me beat that drum more than once already, but I'll continue to beat it. And obviously courses like history in English and all that are very useful. And there's plenty more. Languages, I forgot about that. Fred, you want to add anything to that?
No, I think you've hit most of the prep stuff, Bill. The thing about intelligence is that there's really a lot of different things you can do in the field. I mentioned during the presentation the difference between a collector and an analyst, right? And then all these different, just in the national security realm alone, there's 17 different entities that do something in intelligence, right? So the nice thing about this is the more you familiarize yourself with the field and kind of get an inclination as to what direction you'd like to go, then when you come here and you spend your freshman year getting exposed to the sort of the spectrum of what the realm of the possible is, right? And then for the following 3 years, you really kind of go further and further into directions that are of interest to you. So I think that the more you're able to prepare yourself in terms of, as Bill said, understanding world affairs, understanding what's going on in the world, that'll be good preparation for when you come here and you start dealing with intelligence problems related to those areas.
Thank you both. I really appreciate that. Lena, I think like you, many of our prospective students are often interested in coming to Mercyhurst and continuing their passion for sports. Roughly at Mercyhurst, 1 in 4 of our students here are student athletes. Can you talk a little bit about your ability to manage your academic load, but then also still play well in your golf matches?
Yeah. Honestly, it's not that difficult to navigate going in between golf and school and studying and making sure that my grades are up to par.
No pun intended.
No pun intended. All the professors, I send out my schedule, like my competition schedule at the beginning of every semester, and they're all very understanding for when I do have to miss class to go compete. And normally if it's coming to the point where I need a deadline to be moved, it will be, because professors are very honestly kind about that, because they do understand that so many students are going through this, and that's an experience that a lot of students have.
Thanks, Lena. I appreciate that. Nathan, I think a lot of our students that are actually part of ROTC are often intelligence studies students. Can you talk a little bit about the ROTC program and how you feel it fits with intelligence studies?
Absolutely. So with the Army ROTC program, there's a certain caliber of cadets that I'd like to say we have here. Everyone is very motivated, both physically and mentally, and that aligns really well with intelligence studies. Intel is a very difficult program, but it's also very rewarding. there's a great camaraderie in the ROTC program, and oftentimes the cadets will work together and perform very well in the intelligence studies sector as well. One really awesome opportunity that you can have with Army ROTC is to go into military intelligence. Military intelligence will provide you with your top secret clearance, which is a highly sought after clearance for the national or for the security sector. You get this at no cost as part of your participation in the military, and then once you get out, it will transfer to agencies that you're interested in, such as the FBI or the CIA, which is something that I personally am trying to do right now.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Nathan. Taylor, I know a lot of students have an opportunity to do some internships and things like that as part of the curriculum at Mercyhurst. Can you talk a little bit about your involvement with Mercyhurst Beehive?
Yeah, so I became a part of the Mercyhurst Beehive last January, which is basically a team. We have a team of analysts and we are led by 2 graduate students. And what we do is get clients based in Erie who have basically like business ideas, and they need help getting their businesses started. So they ask us a few questions, and then we produce products for them based off of those questions to help them get a start. So for example, the first project I ever worked on was called Mo's Grows, and Mo, he noticed the lack of produce year round in Erie. So he had an idea to build a year round greenhouse in Erie. So he needed just basic ideas and thoughts to get that started. And he wanted to know opportunities for funding and any like competitors around here, if there's anyone doing the same thing around here. So best practices of similar businesses. So that is something I did. And then we also provide like research to a whole different, like every project I've ever worked on is something different. So that's nice. So I've been exposed to like many different business ideas. And then also the clients that we work with are really awesome. And they sometimes they are willing to write you letters of recommendation because of how well you did, or how just based off of the work that you did for them, whether it helps them or not, and they're really awesome about that. So this past summer, I was able to be a summer analyst for them, and then I am continuing my work into the fall with them.
Thanks, Taylor. Nathan, you've also had a chance to complete a couple of different internships in different parts of the intelligence studies field. Would you mind expanding on some of that?
Sure. I had 2 really great opportunities. One was through the Erie County Crime Analysis Center, which is a law enforcement center that conducts intelligence on crimes as they're being committed. So the idea is that you can take information from a crime as it's happening, as it's developing, and even go about solving it from behind a desk. So one of the cases that I worked on that I actually got to see all the way through was a young woman who had robbed a convenience store. Based on a still image of her face captured by a security camera, I was able to identify her on Facebook, going through profiles and through known suspects in the area. Once we got a positive identification on her, we were able to send out a report to all the local officers, and they were able to bring her in and bring her to justice, which is really cool because it goes a lot further than just writing a paper or maybe an analysis of points or data on a map. I actually got to work with officers. I got to see my work go all the way through the legal system, and it was very rewarding. As well as with ROTC, I got to go to Army Airborne School last summer, where I completed 5 jumps out of the C-130. I got to jump 3 times during the day and 2 times at night, and that was a really amazing experience that I got to do through Mercyhurst ROTC.
Thanks, Nathan. I appreciate that.
So
Dr.
both your
Hoff,
legs?
I'm sorry?
I still have both my legs.
Yeah,
All right.
exactly. He lived
All
to
right.
tell the tale. Dr. Hoffman, one of the other things you mentioned quickly was CIRAT, which I think is really interesting. Can you talk a little bit about how maybe students can get involved in CIRAT when they come to Mercyhurst? And Mr. Welch, feel free to expand as well.
Certainly. So this is something that's really pretty unique here. It's an ongoing, very vibrant program. As I mentioned before, we've got Brian Fuller, he's responsible for essentially being the contracts officer, and he identifies opportunities. He identifies, I was just on a call with him just yesterday with an external partner, a competitive intelligence firm that wanted to do basically take advantage of our students to perform research for the company. And the nice thing about it is sometimes these are paid opportunities where the students can get paid an hourly rate. Sometimes they're not paid, or they could do it as get course credit for it if they're doing an internship. So it's a win-win because it gives students either funding from being paid for doing the work, or maybe course credit, but definitely the experience of working on intelligence-related projects as part of a team, which is invaluable because most of the intelligence community operates in that way. And then also it provides real-world experience where a student that works for a particular company on a project, if they apply for a job with that company, they're not just a random resume that they've received along with 100 other resumes. They are that person who worked in support of the company on that job, and they're a known quantity. So it's very beneficial. Bill, I mean, you've been around longer than I have. Any additional comments?
You're muted again.
Bill?
Yeah. I do that a lot. Anyway, I at one time I was the director of the CIRAT program, and we've had just a wide variety of opportunities with it, everywhere from working for government agencies, getting paid pretty decent money. I'm talking about like 10, 12 bucks an hour. And that's standard what our students are making now. But even 5 or 10 years ago, they were making that much. Our workers for Amazon are making $15 an hour. And Amazon's actually flown them out to Seattle to take a look at the headquarters there and sort of get integrated in with what the offices they're working with. 2 or 3 of the people that were working with Amazon got offers. One of them took it, the other just didn't want to live in Seattle. But we also, we have opportunities here where you can work anywhere from 1 to 2 hours a day. Students get up bright and early in the morning. They do sort of an online search for information, process that information, and send it back to the people we're working with. And then they either use it or pass it on to their clients. And so often this is either, if it hasn't directly helped them get a job with that outfit, it certainly set them up to with their resume and going to look for a job further on, where they find all kinds of opportunities or to do this. It also clarifies to them what they want to do in life. You might get a job with one of these CIRAT jobs and say, what I don't want to do is that. Now I'm going to focus on these other things instead. But you've made money learning that you don't want to do that, but you want to do something else. So, and usually it's just another part of the Intel world that you're going to do. But we've also, we've had, and every now and then these pop up, where opportunities where I think last year we had about 100 of our students working on basically a big grand experiment on intelligence methods. And I think Nathan was part of that, probably Taylor, were you part of that as well?
It was the John Hopkins thing, or it was not?
Yeah, the Johns Hopkins project. So students were getting paid some decent money. It was a flat stipend, several $100s to take part in these in some experiments. No wires were connected. It was simple. Unlike the beginning of Ghostbusters, none of our projects have involved any physical danger or anything. But They've taken part in experiments that ultimately go to the Intelligence Advanced Research Projects Administration, which is looking for better ways to do intelligence analysis. And they're using the experience of our students in that experiment to come up with it. And we've had a few of those over the years, and it would not surprise me. I don't think any's on the books right now, but you never know when the government's going to start looking for more people to do this. And then here we are. They come to us very often.
Thanks, Mr. Welch. I appreciate that. Trey, switching topics just a little bit, as part of the overview of intelligence studies, we learned a little bit about some study abroad opportunities. I know you have some plans to hopefully eventually, once we're allowed to travel again, study abroad in London. Can you talk a little bit about how that's incorporated into the curriculum at Mercyhurst?
So yeah, I think Mercyhurst does a really good job at like setting you up to be able to do that, which a lot of schools don't. I know my community college didn't at all. So I was planning on going to London actually this semester, but with everything that happened, that was kind of pushed back. Mercyhurst has a study abroad fair usually, and it's actually really informative because there's different companies that you can go through that provide different accommodations and stuff for when you get over there. But usually they do a good job at setting you up at what schools to go to over there and like what classes you can take that'll fit into your major requirements or minor requirements, whatever it may be. But yeah, I think Mercyhurst does a really good job at setting you up to be able to do that.
Thanks, Trey. I appreciate that. I know one of the trips that we had to postpone in the spring as well to Dr. Hoffman and Mr. Welch, you might be able to expand on it, but it was actually a trip that was going to be co-hosted between intelligence studies and another department on our campus. And I know Dean McGill was going to be going on it. Could you guys talk a little bit about that as a faculty-led study abroad opportunity?
I know that Dean McGill last January had taken students, it was between fall and spring semesters, had taken them to Europe, and it was basically retracing the steps from D-Day. So they started off in England, and they had gone around to the sites in London, Churchill's wartime bunker. They had gotten briefings and instruction in England. Then they traveled on to France. They went to the Normandy site and a number of other locations. And it was pretty fast paced and very intense. And plus it was in January, but it was well received by everybody. People got course credit and invaluable life experience. I mean, when you travel abroad, you do something like that, these are memories that you're with you really for the rest of your life. So I know it was very well received by everybody.
Awesome. Thanks, Dr. Hoffman. And again, so some of our students at Mercyhurst will go on faculty-led study abroad trips that was just described. Typically, those are about 10 to 14 days. They're usually at the culmination or the beginning of a course. So again, typically a 3-credit course associates with that study abroad experience. Or you could go through another company like Trey had some plans to do, or you could go the third option, which is a full semester usually, or a half of a semester at our Dungarvan campus, which is in Ireland as well too, because again, that is an invaluable part of the education at Mercyhurst. So any student that does want to study abroad oftentimes has an opportunity to do so. So if that's of an interest to you, again, when you come to Mercyhurst, please make sure that you have some of those conversations with your advisors once you get here, and then attend that fair that Trey mentioned that he had so much success at as well too. I know that we are quickly approaching some of our time deadlines today, so I wanted to go ahead and see if any of our prospective students that are joining us today had any questions that they wanted to pose either audibly and or in the chat. If you had a question that you wanted to pose audibly, feel free to go ahead and unmute yourself and ask that question to our speakers today. If not, I'm going to go ahead and maybe ask our students what they enjoy most about being part of the Mercyhurst community. Trey, do you mind starting?
Yeah, so I come from a very small town. So this is really new to me. So when I came here last year as a transfer, one of my roommates was on the tennis team. And for anybody who doesn't know, the tennis team is pretty much all international kids. So I've made friends from all over the world. I have friends from Dubai, from Spain, from Scotland, Ireland, all over the world. And it's been one of the coolest things to watch. And we still talk and everything, but obviously they're not here right now. But I'd say that's probably my favorite thing is the friends.
Excellent. Thanks, Trey. Taylor, what about you?
I would say the relationships you get to make with your professors, because Mercyhurst is such a small school. A lot of the classes are less than 30 students. So you really get to have, like personal connections with the professors that you otherwise wouldn't if you went to a big school with class sizes of more than 100. And then that benefits you in the long run, because then if it comes to your senior year, you need letters of recommendation. The professors here are really awesome about doing that for you, and they can really make it personalized. And and then after graduation, you just have connections, and it helps just build your network in the long run.
Thanks, Taylor. Lena, what do you enjoy most about being a student at Mercyhurst?
I really love how Mercyhurst community actually feels like a community, and you're not getting drowned out in like a sea of people that you'll probably never see again. And like everyone is actually there for each other. And I think that's a really big part of the Mercyhurst community, how close everything is.
Thanks, Lena. And Nathan, sorry to make you go last, but what do you enjoy most about being part of Mercyhurst?
I really enjoy the size of the school. I think Mercyhurst is at a perfect size, just over 3,000 students. So it's small enough where a lot of people here. It's very personal, but that also translates to the relationships that you develop with your professors. The small class sizes make it a lot more personal. You get a much better feedback on your assignments, on your work, especially in Intel where you're doing a lot of briefing, a lot of writing. You get that really good quality feedback. And then you also develop a strong professional relationship with those professors, and they help provide guidance. A lot of our professors here have really strong real-world experience. Dr. Hoffman spent a lot of time in Germany doing human int. There's a professor who's former CIA. Being able to lean on these professors for their professional insight and their guidance is huge. And I don't think it's something you can really get at many other programs.
Thank you so much for those answers, guys. I greatly appreciate it. To our prospective students that have joined us today, we recognize that this isn't the perfect substitute for hosting you on campus, but we do hope that you learned something about our Intelligence Studies program that maybe you didn't know prior to joining us. I do want to go ahead and let you know that if you'd like to continue any of these conversations, we would be happy to go ahead and help you organize an individual visit to chat with our faculty as well, and or the admissions department. If you do have any questions as you navigate your college search, please never hesitate to reach out to the admissions department. We are here to go ahead and assist you. And we recognize that no two college searches are exactly the same. And we are even more aware that you are in a difficult spot because you may not be able to physically get to every campus that you're looking at, possibly attending and enrolling. So please go ahead and utilize us as a resource. We are here for you, and we look forward to continuing to work with you. Until we have an opportunity to see you on campus or in another virtual event, please know that we wish you continued good health. Stay tuned. Always check the admissions website for additional events and opportunities to interact with us. Carpe diem and enjoy the rest of your day.